Welcome to the Unfiltered Talk podcast, the podcast for the players, by the players. I'm your host, Alama Pili Mai. Thank you guys, everyone, for being so patient. It's been, it's been like 2.5 months, almost 3 months since I said I was going to start this whole podcasting and kind of talk about my experiences at BYU, but then also highlight the experiences of other athletes and stuff. I'm sorry about that, man. It's been, dude, it's been freaking tough trying to get this thing all put together. First thing, my laptop like literally can't handle the processing power and the RAM that it requires to like edit videos through Adobe Premiere. So that's been like its own like trial within it of itself. But also I started a job. I'm working inside sales at Vivint, and so I've been keeping myself busy there because I gotta get food on the table, and my wife and I are like trying to like so hard to save money, but it's so tough because like things are so expensive, and then on top of that, there's just wives are expensive. You feel me? Going into this whole podcasting, I kind of wanted to outline like why I'm doing this. The biggest thing is like I feel like with student athletes, like the stories that we have in college, they kind of get like undermined a lot of the times, where I feel like we're not able to share some things because we don't want to upset certain people, or there's not really a platform for people to kind of share their college athletics experience. And so like having played at BYU, I've kind of learned that there's a lot of nuanced situations that go on that I feel like should be shared just for people to understand like the life of a student athlete and the things that they have to go through. Ranging from things like everyday struggles of having to everyday needs of a student athlete, and then going into like the politics of their actual sports with the coaches and the institution that they represent, right? We got a lot of these questions like last season, and I mean, since I've been here at BYU, or when I was playing, there's a lot of questions that fans would ask me about, like, well, what's this like, and like, so how does this work in this, and I've always like tried to bite my tongue and be careful about what I say, because I don't want like to paint anybody in the wrong light. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, it's not wrong to like share like just raw experiences with like what we go through as athletes, right? So that's kind of like the motivation for why I wanted to do it in the first place. Now, of course, like there's not all my experiences with BYU are positive, and you shouldn't expect it to be just because it bears the name Brigham Young and represents the church. Doesn't mean that it's like a perfect institution and that the people who represent the institution are perfect either. Nobody expects that, and I don't think that's fair for anyone to expect that. And so it's okay to kind of be lighthearted about sharing these experiences. Now, there are certain cases where like people's athletic careers are put at risk, or they've been they don't come out with the best outcomes because of certain things and decisions that have been made within the athletic institution. But again, that's just kind of that's kind of the way that things pan out. And so I just want to be able to like share my experiences, but then also use this as a platform to highlight the experiences of other people. So I don't want to think of this as like, we're just bashing BYU. No, dude, I want to highlight the good things about BYU. Like, there's plenty of good things to discuss. Many of which being the church's presence in Provo. Like, that's just, it's awesome. Like, it creates an environment of like love and inclusion and respect for the most part. But on the other hand, there is a bit of this attitude or perspective that like we shouldn't challenge, or we shouldn't ask questions as to why things are being done the way they are. And I'm specifically speaking about the athletics program, and like for me, with my experience in football. And so that's kind of like the biggest thing, is I just want to be able to share those things and provide answers. Hopefully, the fan base will find those satisfactory, and that other athletes will think that this is a productive thing. So anyways, kind of going into my story with college football, I got recruited in 2016. I got recruited much earlier than that by Coach Kalani when he was at Utah. I originally had gotten recruited as a linebacker. Coach Kalani saw me play quarterback and thought that I would be a great linebacker, so I got recruited as that. Coach Kalani left Utah and went to Oregon State, and that's where I received my first offer. I received an offer from Coach Kalani after he had looked at my junior year highlights. After receiving shortly after receiving my offer from Oregon State, I ended up getting an offer from BYU from I think it was Coach. Oh gosh, what's his name? He was I think the safeties coach at the time. Starts with an H. Can't remember, but he, along with Coach Papinga, had started to recruit me from BYU. I got an offer from them, and then I'd met Coach Mendenhall at some fan fest and had a pretty positive experience with them overall. After that, I got an offer from Washington State from Coach Grinch, and Coach Salivea was also there. Who I don't think he's there anymore. I want to say he's either coaching another Power 5 team or he's with an NFL team. I can't remember. But then after that, I got an offer from Utah State, actually from, linebackers coach for BYU this past year. Gosh, I can see his face, but I can't think of his name, and I feel so bad that I'm missing out on his name right now. But anyways, yeah, I got offered at Utah State, and then after that, I got offered at the University of Utah. And I had a relationship with the Utah coaches through Coach Roderick when he was there, because he was kind of tight with Coach Kalani, and they had kind of exchanged notes on their recruiting of me. And so that was really cool. I was committed to Utah originally, and then I flipped over to BYU after my visit with Utah. I just didn't feel like it was the right place for me, the environment, and overall, I don't know, just didn't feel like how I felt when I was at BYU. So I ended up committing to BYU on signing day. It was a great experience for the most part. My freshman year, I played a little bit. I got moved to tight end because I was just too small at linebacker. I'm 6'4", but I was only like 215, maybe 220. Not even 220 at that point. And so I got moved to tight end. I did decently there. I feel like, I just tried to use my athleticism to the best of my ability. But blocking obviously is tough at 215, and you have these big ass freaking linemen that are huge, and it's hard to block them. But going along with that, hey babe, go ahead, you can come in. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, my wife just walked in. And so I played tight end a little bit for BYU. I gotten a few games. I never caught anything. I don't think I ever got thrown to my freshman year. So then after my freshman year, I decided I wanted to go serve a mission. Served a mission from 2017 to 2019 in the Micronesia Guam mission. And great experience for me. It was a good time for me to kind of grow up and learn how to be an adult and provide for myself. But along with that, I was also able to kind of just experience the real world for a little bit, kind of take a break from football. After my mission, I came back in 2019. I was still playing tight end, and the plans were for me to stay at tight end at that time. In 2019, I was, redshirted. Let's see what happened during that year. Nothing much, really. I mean, I had a few injuries. I had, I think a few broken fingers. Mason Fakuhua actually broke my finger during, he was playing quarterback at the time, and he just threw this beam at me, on a 5-yard stop, and it freaking broke, my pinky finger or something like that, and that sucked. So thanks a lot, Mason. Appreciate it, bro. 2019, and then after 2019, I kind of realized that there was a bit of an attitude shift in regard to, the team's attitude towards me. Coach Grime was the offensive coordinator at the time, and Coach Mateos was the O-line coach there. And I don't know. I think I just got pegged as someone who couldn't pick up the plays or something. I mean, I was still a young tight end, and so it was tough for me to get the playbook right and not make simple mistakes. But I really just needed someone to kind of just invest their time in me. And Coach Clark did the best he could, but at the same time, it's he's not the one making the calls. So at some point during the 2020 off season, I think after spring ball, I decided that I wanted to switch over to defense because I just felt like that was going to be the best decision for my football career. I had talked to Coach Kalani about getting switched over, and he felt like it was the right decision too. But I want to clarify, that was my decision to switch over. It wasn't the coaches, creating this master plan, like, oh yeah, we're going to switch him over. And it wasn't anything like that. It was something that I had decided to do, and I made the deliberate choice to switch over to defense. Yeah, that 2020 season, I didn't play at all. I think I got hurt. I tore my labrum while playing scout defense for the offense, who had like Zach Wilson, Tyler Algier, and all those guys. Got hurt. I sat out for the 2020 season. Got my labrum surgery on my left arm or left shoulder. And then during the 2021 offseason, I was just kind of trying to build myself back up. I didn't participate in spring ball at all. And then going into the 2021 season, my wife and I caught COVID, which really sucked because that took me out for like most of the summer workouts and then also part of fall camp. And so going into the 2021 season, this is when like I really started to get frustrated with what things were happening because, I was told by my position coach to not participate in fall camp. Now at the time, I understand, like, you get sick, you lose weight, and you're not healthy, you can get injured. But at that time, I was working really hard to get myself back into shape, and then to also try to fight for a spot on the travel team. And so in 2021, once I had heard that they wanted me to not participate in fall camp, I said no, and I fought against it. And so I went to the strength coach and I said, hey, can you clear me so that I can get back into fall camp? And he said, oh, come on, man, just sit out and get healed up and blah, 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 get strong. I was like, no, I'm not going to sit out. If you sit out, like, you literally lose, you run the risk of, like, basically getting pegged as an injured guy, and then you don't get playing time. And then for me, I was like, this will be a time for me to prove myself, to prove that I belong here and that I really want to, make it onto the travel team. So what they made me do was they made me run 17 110s. And when I asked the strength coach, like, hey, so what, is there a metric or a measurement that you want me to hit? And he was like, oh, just run it, I'll tell you. So I busted my ass on those 110s, and I think I ran like maybe 7 or 6 good ones. The other ones, I was just, there's not much you can do, man. You get tired, and it's like, what, you want me to run 110s, like 17 of them good? Yeah, hell no. I'm sorry about the language, guys. Look, if it's in the Bible, I think it's okay. Like, personally, like, that's just for me. But if you guys just don't judge me, all right? It's in the Bible, so I think it's fine. So I had ran those 110s. I got cleared because he said, yeah, I just wanted you to run 5 good ones. I was like, well, why didn't you just make me run 5 good ones instead of 17? Anyways, that's just me being bitter. So then after that, I got re-added onto the team for fall camp, and it was tough getting back because I was a little bit out of shape, but like not terribly out of shape because I was still trying to, during the off season, I was trying to push myself even after I got sick to get myself back into shape. Got into the 2021 season, hardly played at all. I only played in one game, and that was in the Idaho State game, which is like, the throwaway game of the season, right? I'm grateful that I played, but at the same time, like, I knew that I had that year was wasted for me in terms of college eligibility. And then going into the 2022 season, as we enter the off season after the 2021 season, I was like, okay, like, now this is my year. Now I'm gonna kind of put the pieces together and be able to kind of build up my name and be able to contribute to the team and set myself apart as a contributor for the BYU team. Now, going into the 2022 season, there was also a little bit of like, some communication from the coaches saying, hey man, you look really good. Like, we're excited to see you work. We have plans for you, blah, blah, blah. Just normal, like, coach talk. And if there's one thing that I could share with like college athletes is that don't drink the Kool-Aid, man. Like, don't let what coaches tell you get to your head or allow that to kind of, don't let it force you or compel you to make expectations for what you think will happen. Because what ended up happening was I hardly played a snap on during the 2022 season. I played during the Liberty game when we were losing in the fourth quarter. I played a little bit in the Utah State game. I didn't even travel to the Southern Florida game. I was told literally the week of that I wasn't going to travel when I thought that I was going to, and so that was kind of disappointing because that was like my senior year. I mean, I had one more year afterwards, but my whole plan was to have a good senior year, and then I would use my COVID year and be able to play the 2023 season. So going in the 22 season, I frustrating. I was supposed to play in the Notre Dame game. So check this out. So I had a great practice week, like that entire week for the Notre Dame game, and my coach had told me like, hey, you're doing really good. Like, expect to play on Saturday. Come Saturday, still on the sideline. I almost went in during like the second quarter, right before we went to halftime. Didn't end up going in, and then I sat out for the rest of the second half as well. And so we get to film on Monday. Obviously, it was kind of a heartbreaking loss because we felt like we should have won that game. And then I'm like sitting there like, coach, like, why didn't I play? Like, what's going on? Like, I felt like there was this expectation that was set and ended up not happening. And he goes, yeah, man, you just looked off in the pregame, And I was like, what? What do you mean the pregame? I was like, yeah, you just, I was looking at you during the pregame and I just didn't feel like you were ready. I was like, dude, that doesn't make any sense, bro. How does the pregame play into, like, how does that detract from the practice week that I had? You know what I mean? And I go and I turn to Coach Jorgensen, Coach Janimal, and I was like, Coach, I was like, is there any merit to what he just said? And he sat there just like, I don't know what he's talking about, bro. I don't know what he's talking about. And he tried to give me a satisfactory answer. He was just telling me like, dude, that was a violent game. Like, that was, a tough game to try to put you in and have that be your first game. At the time, that would have been my first game played. And that answer made a little bit more sense, but at the same time, it still frustrated me because I was like, okay, then, like, let's not like set this expectation that, hey, yeah, he's gonna play, or yeah, definitely be ready. I mean, just be honest and say, look, dude, you're not even in 3 deep, or you're not even in the 4 deep. So yeah, I mean, you could play, you might not. Because at the same time, I'm like, dude, if I would have known that this was how things were gonna play out, I would have transferred. Like, I would have been gone because at that time, like, my football career was already hanging by a thread, and so to have have things not pan out for the 2022 season, that just ruined my chance of ever transferring and getting on a roster somewhere else, right? At least at a bigger program that could provide me like with a scholarship, right? Also, this past season, during the 2021 season, after that season, I got taken off a scholarship by Coach Tuyaki, and that was another like frustrating piece of the puzzle because it was like that was what was supporting me and my wife at that time, and so we couldn't support ourselves. We had to rely on an alternative for us for our living situation, and so that was just really tough time. And so going into the 2022 season, I really felt like I had to make a name for myself, and ended up not happening because I never got played. And even when I approached the coaches and asked them like, what is going on, like, why am I not playing, they used euphemisms that were attempts to try to put my mind at ease, but really what they should have said was just like, dude, you're just not good enough to play here. You're not good enough to be on the roster, in the 3 deep depth chart. And I would have accepted that because at that point I just needed some sort of honesty, like something to kind of like hold on to so that I could, move on. So again, frustrating time. After the 2022 season, I had told Coach Kalani that I wanted to stick around and be around for the 2023 season because I knew, once Coach Tuyaki and some of the other coaches had left BYU, left. We all know what happened, right? once they had left BYU, I figured, okay, this could be, a clean slate for me. With these new coaches coming in, maybe they could see my potential, and then I could maybe earn my scholarship back, become a contributor for the team. And Coach Boha and Coach Hill, they're great guys. I really do love what they're doing with BYU currently. I feel like that they've kind of added this level of like tenacity, ferociousness in the defense, especially with the D line and Coach Boha. Because, like, if you guys have ever met Coach Boha, he's a super nice guy, very down to earth, easy to talk to. And then when he's on the field, like, he's still that same guy, but there's like this passion, but also this understanding of the game that you can tell can only come from experience, right? Because he played in the NFL for a number of years with the Jets. He was on one of the best defenses in the NFL. And so he kind of understands the nuance of the position, of being a defensive lineman. And then bringing Coach Papinga from Boise State was a great move too. I think that the defensive ends are in a great position now to kind of be playmakers, but then also setting them up for the future with the NFL and all that. So again, great moves were made, but I feel like those moves were made just a little bit too late for my career. And so that was frustrating to see all of that happen and feel like, man, I'm happy for the team, but I wish that this could have been a better situation for me, right? So anyways, so ultimately, my whole, the lesson that I learned from my experience at BYU is, yes, you should do what's best for the team. You should do what you can to help a coach to implement his system and to maximize the output and the performance of that system. However, when you maximizing your part in a system detracts or takes away from your individual stock as a player, I think that there definitely should be questions that should be asked. Should I be here? Should I be at this school? Is this school doing what's best for me in order to help me, help set myself up at the next level? Which obviously is the NFL for a lot of people. That's kind of the goal. And then as a college football player, can you walk away from the program feeling like, you gave everything to the program, but then at the same time, the program gave everything to you, And there was times when I didn't feel that way. Now, that's just, again, people are going to feel that way. It's not like everybody who goes through a college program is going to have a positive experience. That's just the reality of it. And we shouldn't be expected to kind of not share our negative experiences simply because, well, you should just be grateful. I am grateful. I'm grateful for BYU. I'm grateful for what it did and providing me the education that I got. But it just didn't do very much for my football career. I don't have a football career. I hardly played any games. And I know that there's a lot of players that played with me and are currently still playing that feel that same way. I hope that there's changes being made, and I think there are. And it'd be great to have some of the boys on the podcast to kind of ask them how things are going now and what they feel like the changes, to see if the changes that are being made are positive and if there are some things that are still the same. Because I know that there's always that lingering question with BYU. It's like, okay, we see the surface level changes being made, but what's being done behind the curtain, right? What's being done from an institutional level, from an athletics department level, right? Because I think if you dig deeper, you're gonna find you're gonna be disappointed in some aspects, and then you'll be surprised in others. But anyways, so that's kind of my football experience kind of wrapped up there. We had some issues with the transfer portal when Cody had originally entered the transfer portal, and along with these other players too, like Keenan Peely, the Barrington brothers, Jacob Conover. When they entered the transfer portal, there was always these questions of well, they weren't bought in, they weren't committed, and dude, that's the stupidest cop out I've ever heard. That's completely removing any blame from the institution, from BYU, because there were things that BYU could have done better. And they just don't do as good as other programs. That's okay to admit, because BYU also does things way better than other programs. And so that's that it's okay to admit that, we shouldn't shy away from it. But people do anyways, because there's I don't know if there's a fear or whatever. I've heard stories of people getting contacted after they've said something about BYU, and they get contacted by a mysterious number. Say, hey, watch what you're saying, buddy. So hopefully that's not the case here, because I'm not coming at BYU with bad intentions. I just want to be able to share my story, and hopefully things improve so that the experience of other student athletes can be better than what mine was. Um, and there's a lot of players that share the same experience with me as well, where um, their football careers were just, I don't want to say ruined, but they weren't uh, they weren't able to take advantage of all the opportunities because the opportunities weren't there, or they were there and nobody helped them to kind of maximize them. So, but anyways, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of hop on here and kind of share a little bit. This is episode 1, right, of the Unfiltered Talk podcast. I'm hoping that next episode I'll be able to get someone else to kind of hop on here so we can talk together about their experiences. But yeah, and I'll end with this remark here in regards to the transfer portal. The transfer portal is the perfect market for people to find out what their value is. And so I think that players should get paid what they are valued. And so if a school is willing to pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, that's what they deserve. If a school isn't willing to do so, then that's because that's just their value as a player. And I'm talking about performance on the field, because that's ultimately what matters, right? With Keenan Peely, for instance, right, he transferred to Tennessee. He's starting, and the coaches value him, and so in terms of NIL, they probably took care of him. Whereas at BYU, I don't think BYU's not the best spot for NIL. It's just not. That's just the bottom line. It's not a great spot to make money and to build wealth. Instead, it's a good place to network and to kind of raise your family in, because of the family environment. And if you're a member, obviously, like, the spiritual aspect of it is unmatched. But in terms of NIL, that's not what BYU is known for. Now, I've heard behind closed doors that there are some things that are being done for BYU players and with the collective, and maybe it's not behind closed doors, but you know what I mean. That there are things being done so that we can be more competitive in the NIL space, and I think that's great. But then again, there were promises made to players about NIL and things, and players getting paid and stuff, and a lot of those promises fell short. And so I'm hoping that it's different now, so that people can kind of see that BYU is a competitive place. I mean, we got Keaton Slovis, right? I mean, there's no way that he came here just out of the the willingness of his heart, right? They're taking care of him. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing, because college players have expenses and such too that they got to pay for. And so if schools are willing to pay for those things, that's what they're valued, and that's what the market is going to pay for them. So anyways, it's been a pleasure hopping on here, and I hope you guys enjoy the first episode. Next episode, what I'm going to do too, I'm going to have a few questions that you guys might have as fans in regards to college football, maybe even BYU too. But there's episode 1. Hopefully I'll get the next episode out soon, much sooner than I get this one out. I'm really sorry about that. Again, this my stupid laptop, man. I'm not trying to save up money to get a new one, but then again, we got other bills too, so we got to take care of those. But anyways, peace out. Appreciate it.